Okay, fellas, good to see all you youngsters here. So this is the plan if we secure the title against Macarthur FC, okay? So I've got a lot of players on yellow cards, which if they pick them up in the victory game, the last A-Legue win of the season, they could miss that cup final, and I don't want that. So I want you all to be prepared to potentially get a first team call up for that final A-Legue game of the season. If you impress, you might get called up for next season, okay? No promises. But if you impress me, you could get a first team spot next season and just help us out on that final match day, okay? Because I don't want any of our first teamers suspended as we try and go for the double in the cup final, okay? You guys all okay with that? Even you, Adam, I might give you a debut. Not just because you're my son, I promise, because you're a kind of good player. Okay, guys, that sound good? You, yay!
Party in the streets and the city's on fire.
Hello everyone and welcome to episode number 20 of the New Zealand Builder Nation here on Sean Does FM with both the All Whites and with AFC Auckland. And coming up today we finish the second season with our club team. We're going to do that by playing our last two games of the A-League season, hopefully in fact just the first one. We need 1 point from our last two games because of our superior goal differential to lift the A-League title, and off the back of that we will then take on Melbourne City in an Australian Cup final and also get through the end of season review and get our transfer budgets for next season as well. So if you're looking forward to that coming up in today's episode, then do remember to go down below, leave a thumbs up on the video, and if you haven't done so already and are enjoying the series here on the channel, also consider hitting that subscribe button and turning that notification bell on as well. It is greatly appreciated, but not much has happened off the back of the end of yesterday's episode when we took on both Sydney FC and the Melbourne Victory. If you missed that one, I'll leave a link to it over in the top right corner. That win over Sydney FC put us right on the verge of lifting the A-League title with the superior goal differential that we do have 24 goals over the Central Coast Mariners. They've just got one game left in their season now. They had an early kickoff on the second to last match week, and once we go over and have a look at what happened in that one, you will see they picked up a 2-0 win, unsurprisingly, away from home against already relegated South Melbourne. So it does mean they're 2 points behind us with one game left in their season, but because our goal differential is so superior, I'm pretty sure just a point from one of these last two games should be good enough for us to lift the A-League title in our second season of this save. Hopefully that will happen in the first game when we take on Macarthur, because otherwise Melbourne Victory, that could be a little bit tough. And also, we'll touch on it soon, might be a suspension issue if it does go down to that final day of the season, going into the cup final where we do take on a Melbourne City team who are currently trying to fight their way out of a relegation playoff position. But with us having played no games off the back of yesterday's episode, we've just gone forward a couple of weeks to get to this first match of today's episode where we take on Macarthur FC. They're down in 9th. To be fair, have been in some decent form recently. Their only defeat did come against Sydney FC 2-1 away from home. That's not a bad result at all considering Sydney FC are above them on the table. They have knocked off some other decent teams of late, including last time out 3-1 over Western Sydney. Those guys currently are in third on the table. Could have some Asian Confederation football for next season, but there should be a team we can at least get something off of in this first game to make sure that we do lift the A-League title, and hopefully that will be the case because, as mentioned before, lots of our players are on yellow cards, and we get into the stage of the season where those suspensions now last two games, and that would mean if someone picks one up in this upcoming game, they would also miss the cup final, which will be the second game, hopefully, we play in today's episode, our last one of this season. Debungo, Elliott, Pascali, and Ronaldo all on yellow cards in our regular first choice 11, and on the bench, also Nick Sullivan is sitting on a yellow card, and added to that, Lucas Nunez picked one up. That means he's suspended for both this game as well as our last one in the A-League against the Melbourne Victory, so he won't be able to feature until that cup final anyway. Hopefully, no yellow cards in this upcoming game. We can get the job done, and I can rotate the team quite a bit going into that last game of the A-League season just to make sure we have a full strength squad available for that Australian Cup final. And hopefully, we can get some revenge on Melbourne City after they surprisingly beat us back in early March, heading into the start of yesterday's episode. But first up today, hopefully, good chance for us here to lift the A-League title against Macarthur FC, a team we've got a decent record against so far in the save, 2 wins and a draw. They are yet to beat us. Hopefully that will continue, and that should be enough for us to lift the title. Just one injury, Stefan Negro. He's so injury prone these days, but thankfully won't affect our bench too much. It does just mean that Jack Henry Sinclair can stay as the right back cover, and we'll come back shortly and hopefully lift the A-League title in front of our fans at Mount Smart. And here are the team sheets for this first game of today's episode. Hopefully the only one that we actually play in the A-League. Won't have to come back for the victory if we pick up something from this game. The only change, as I said, that suspension to Nunez does mean Victor starts at centre-back, but apart from that, we are at full strength, hopefully no yellow cards, because otherwise that could be an issue going in to that cup final there where Macarthur going, it looked like, with a 4-3-3. First versus ninth, if we can just pick up that 1 point, we will lift the A-League title. And in fact, there's a highlight here immediately from the kickoff, so hopefully a good chance for us here to get on the front foot nice and early. Did have a team meeting prior to this game, did fire up the boys a little bit, albeit that opening highlight not up to too much. Just a free kick, but it does get shown quite quickly. Elliott plays it over the top for Ronaldo, who does get in behind early, squares that one for Stefan Malk. He will take on a short, and that forces a really good save there out of the Macarthur FC goalkeeper to keep it at 0-0 early, and shortly off the back of that, a corner in our favour. Debungo starts to cut inside, takes on the shot, and yet again, Muchlovic's there with a really good save to keep this one at 0-0. But early stages, well and truly on the front foot in this game. Hopefully, there is a sign of things to come. Unfortunately, can't quite link up with anyone from that subsequent corner, but lots of chances for us early. But it looks like still going to be locked up at 0-0, albeit this highlight does continue for now. Now it finishes, still 0-0, but now at the 3-minute mark, yet again, we are on the attack. Ronaldo starts to cut inside from the right. Benadze now finds the Debungo. Good chance there from a tight angle. That one off the base of the right-hand post. It's cleared away for yet another corner, but early stages absolutely bettering here Macarthur FC. Just can't quite find a way to get the ball in the back of the net. Unfortunately, they deal with the danger from that subsequent corner. We'll see if a Tamer can get something going here on the attack. Unfortunately, we lose possession briefly. The highlight ends, and it's still 0-0. Now up to the 10-minute mark, still on the attack here, so a really good start for us in this game. Victor there with a header straight into the path of Muchlovic's. We continue to be right on the front foot, but it's still 0-0. And for the first time in this game, it's actually Macarthur FC here with a corner. They put that one into the mixer. It gets bundled away, but they still have the ball here just inside the box. McGing will square that one for Raphael. It falls to Popovic. Good save there from Paulson. And the referee's given a foul. And that would be really annoying off the back of the chances that we've had down the other end to make this 1-0 if they get a chance here from the penalty spot. It is, to be fair, not too sure exactly what happened in there because they still got a decent chance off there. Did Macarthur FC, but Jones here with a chance to give them a 1-0 lead, but goes straight down the middle, and Alex Paulson continues a pretty good record from penalties recently for us here at AFC Auckland, much like in real life, and thankfully they don't FM us. It's still 0-0. And it's been a very quiet game off the back of that opening 15 minutes. No highlights since that penalty save from Alex Paulson. Thankfully, he did that because that was the only thing that Macarthur FC had done in the opening stages of that game. Before then, we were well and truly on the front foot. It does mean their XG is a lot higher than ours, but up until then, certainly the team on the front foot being certainly quieting down off the back of that opening 15 minutes. I'm going to half time with things still locked up at 0-0, but we're going to make some changes here. Unfortunately, Fernandez, just prior to that penalty, did pick up a yellow card, so Tormin will come on for him. Pretty good bench option. Also, both our wing-backs are struggling and, of course, are sitting on those yellow cards heading in to that cup final. Might be a good idea to switch those guys for Sinclair and for Lobo. So a couple of changes there at halftime, but hopefully, at the very least, we can hold on here and pick up a point, but hopefully pick up a win to absolutely make sure we lift the A-League title with a game in hand. And just like the first half, some early action here in the second. It's a corner here in our favour. Victor yet again gets his head on the end of that one. It beats Muchlovic's, but unfortunately also beats the crossbar. And it's still somehow 0-0. And now making way up to the hour mark. And I think it's time for us now to make a change up front. Unfortunately, Gianni today not doing too well on a 6.4. Hassan Jallo can come on for him. Still 0-0, but to be fair, that might be enough for us to lift the title. And right off the back of that change where we did bring on Jallo up front, now Malk has gone down to a red heart with an orange injury just prior to a highlight starting. So because of that, we'll move Tormin to the central attacking midfield role he's been covering of late, and Hotman de Villiers can come off the bench and play left wing. There'll be all our subs used, but we'll see what does happen as this highlight will continue. It is a throw-in to Macarthur FC. Hopefully they won't do too much. Popovic is on the ball, plays that one out right for Raphael. Drew back to Raphael, that pass just behind him, but Macarthur FC here in the all-white do keep hold of the ball at the moment. Just feels like might be paying the price for not being clinical enough with all those chances we did have in the first 15 minutes. Macarthur here might get a chance to take a 1-0 lead. They're on the ball here. Tormeen can't quite win that one off of Raphael. Now McGinn, he starts to make his way down that right-hand flank. Looks to float that one far post. Mitchell, good header away though. And Ronaldo might actually be able to do something here to get us going on the counter-attack. Makes his way into the final third on the edge of the box, just inside the box. Squeeze that one for Hassan Jallo. Off of the bench, he will pick up his 12th goal of the season. And finally, we take a 1-0 lead here at Mount Smart. We should have done that really inside the first 10 minutes with all those early chances that we did create. But Ronaldo here, brilliant run on the counter-attack off the back of that header from Mitchell to get us in a bit of space. And Jallo just sweeps that one home. Eventually, we do beat Macarthur and we make it 1-0 with 25 minutes left. And just about to make our way into the last 10 minutes of this game, nothing's happened off the back of that goal, which did give us the 1-0 lead. But now it's time for us to start time wasting just to hopefully make sure we at the very least hold on for a point from this game to lift that A-League title. And in fact, right off the back of those changes are thrown here in our favour. Lobo with the ball down our left-hand side. Tormeen finds Victor Ross. We screw it essentially a tame. A nice ball over the top there for Ronaldo. Big chance to seal it at 2-0, but unfortunately that shot just goes wide. Still only 1-0. To be fair, stats-wise, this game has been quite even, but obviously Macarthur FC, that big chance from the penalty spot. Alex Paulson has been huge for us with saving those penalties late on this season, and that has proven a big difference maker in making sure that we pick up the toilet seat, aka the A-League trophy, with one game in hand, and that's very nice indeed. With that yellow card situation here in to our final game of the season, it does mean can call up some players from our under-19s to have a run against the Melbourne Victory. Might even give a debut to my son and Adam does FM. Because of that, to be fair, don't forget strikers in too much discipline trouble. But there is the A-League trophy. They haven't cut the centre out like they have in the real life trophy, which usually gets lifted, but nonetheless, we have won the A-League in our second season here at AFC Auckland off the back of a narrow 1-0 win over Macarthur FC. And back in the inbox off the back of that win in the first game of today's episode, thankfully getting it done there, so we don't have to show you guys yet another game against the Melbourne Victory, and also that should make sure we can put out a full strength team for that Oz Cup final. We do have a chance of completing a double. There is the confirmation. We pick up the A-League in the second season of the save, of course, after coming quite close last season, finishing a narrow second in behind the Central Coast Mariners. This time, we get the job done over them with a game in hand. Obviously, our best ever finish. It's only our second season. Stefan Mark did pick up an injury. Thankfully, only 1 to 2 days. He'll be fine for that cup final, which is almost a month away, of course, with our 2-week gaps here currently in the A-League. The board delighted with the fact that we've challenged for the A-League title sooner than expected, and also that we've won the title 4 years ahead of schedule. Unfortunately, it probably means they'll expect it from this point forward in the save. We do enter the Australian Hall of Fame, which is quite hilarious considering we're in New Zealand, but nonetheless, we also bring some glory for the first time to AFC Auckland. The board are very happy with us, and Alex Paulson, brilliant there. 9 saves in that game, including yet another penalty save. He's been great for us in the second part of this season. Here's Alex Paulson, of course, last season did actually concede quite a few goals at the Wellington Phoenix. This time has conceded a lot less up here at AFC Auckland and a lot more clean sheets. Also, just noticing there, he is wanted, thankfully not by a big European club, but by the New York Red Bulls. Hopefully that means we can keep hold of him. To be fair, wouldn't mind shipping some of our New Zealand players onto Europe if they're going to be guaranteed starters. Not too sure if the MLS is that much better than the A-League. Might have to consider that if they do come in for a bid for Alex Paulson. Of course, we could always call up Michael Vood to be first choice. That would not be bad at all for the national team, but Alex Paulson has been great for us in his first season here at AFC Auckland, making sure we go one better than last season and do lift the A-League title. And we'll come back in a bit with either transfer budgets or get ready for our cup final against Melbourne City, where we look for the double. And we've gone for quite a few weeks off the back of winning that A-League title. Nothing's happened in terms of transfer budgets yet. That's probably because still waiting for the result of the relegation playoff that has been contested between Adelaide United and the Newcastle Jets. As you can see, the first leg has been played. Adelaide with a 4-2 lead, so it does look like, seeing as that one was away from home in Newcastle, the Jets might be going down to the second division for next season, but Melbourne City did actually jump above A-Legue United with some good late season form. So Melbourne City actually have quite a bit to play for in this upcoming cup final. It's the only chance to get into some Asian continental football for next season through the Confederations Cup. Of course, us here at AFC Auckland can't do that because we're technically in Oceania, which is a little bit of a bummer, but still a chance for us here to complete a double, albeit going to have to do it without both our goalkeepers, because if you see the schedule coming up on the right-hand side, 2 days off back of this Melbourne City game, the cup final, we play our last two qualifiers for the World Cup qualifying pool phase. We just need one win from those to make sure we go through top of our group and then play in the final of that competition, where if we win, we get a spot at the World Cup. But unfortunately, because those games are quite close to this cup final, it does mean that both Alex Paulson and Michael Vood are currently travelling to join up with the New Zealand national team, which is a bit of a boo-boo considering I'm also the manager of the New Zealand national team. Really should have seen that coming. So unfortunately, a little bit weaker than I was expecting. In goal for this upcoming game, Matthew Ford, he will be in between the sticks, the former Kashmir Tech and Christchurch United man who has been living at the moment in our under-19s. Decent prospect with 4-star potential, 1.5-star current ability, but certainly nowhere near as good as Paulson or Michael Voodoo probably would have started this game, seeing as he is the cup goalkeeper. Also, just quickly, did play our last game of the A-League season, did rotate heavily, and did get fresh 4-1 by the Melbourne victory at Mount Smart. To be fair, didn't actually play that badly in this game. It felt like a XG actually higher than the victory, but somehow they did walk away with a 4-1 win. Some of our youngsters, unfortunately, didn't perform that well, including the son, and Adam Does FM had a really good chance blocked in the second half of that game, a 6-point win. Not the best debut, but thankfully does mean that all the players on yellow cards did get a rest or at full strength going to this game. Apart from the goalkeeping situation, also Lucas Nunes actually came back in that game, picked up another yellow card, but thankfully that won't keep him out of this cup final, and we'll come back shortly and hopefully get the job done over a Melbourne City team who did defeat us, of course, last time we played them at Mount Smart back in March. Of course, this final is at Mount Smart, which is a little bit hilarious with it being the Australian Cup final, but hopefully, seeing as these guys struggled this season, just managing to avoid a spot in a relegation playoff, this is a team we can beat, albeit media prediction-wise, they were actually the team that was predicted to finish top of the A-League. Certainly a team that we need to respect, especially after they beat us not that long ago, but hopefully we can make it a double at Mount Smart and pick up the Australian Cup over City. And here are the team sheets for this Australian Cup final from Mount Smart. Just one change to our usual best 11. And of course, it comes in goal with no Alex Paulson or Michael Vood. Matthew Ford will start in between the sticks. And there are Melbourne City going with a 4-4-2. Looks like they're not affected by any upcoming international duty and come into this one in some pretty good form. But hopefully, we can make it a double in the second season of this save. And at the 5-minute mark, the first highlight here is in favour of Melbourne City. Did decide for this one, we'll wear the black considering that's what's listed in the game as our usual home colour. And of course, Melbourne City, they wear sky blue. Might have been a slight colour clash. So we're in the black today despite the fact we are at home. But Melbourne City here do keep the ball quite well from this opening highlight. Good. Plays that one over to Sunwell, one of the centre-backs there. Now Arslan plays that one all the way back to Vukovic in goal. Now Good, he is back on the ball at the moment. Melbourne City is taking their time here to try and get something going from the back. They try and pop that one over the top. Thankfully, Nunes wins that one in the air, and Stefan Malk can control that back from that injury, which kept him out of that one game against the Melbourne victory, albeit could have played that one if he needed to. Did come off the bench and score a goal, so thankfully in some good form. But Elliott now on the ball might be an early chance for us here if he can square it. He does find Ronaldo. It actually finds its way through to Fernandez, but unfortunately his shot gets blocked, so eventually decent chance for us there, but unfortunately can't quite get it on target. The Melbourne City defence covers that well, and it's still 0-0 at the 6-minute mark. And in fact, very shortly off the back of that opening chance, now it's a goal kick to the Melbourne City, so they're going to try and pump that one deep through Vukovic. This time, we win the header, but it only finds Arslan's. Might be a chance here for City to open the scoring here. Alpha Luplicht will square that one, looking for in the boot. Thankfully, Pascali gets a foot in the air, and it's not a foul. Some early chances here coming for both teams, but neither team able to get a proper shot on target in anger. And now on the 15-minute mark, a corner here in our favour, headed away. Pascali gets his heel on the end of that one, but to be fair, that was a looping header, never really troubling Vukovic, and it's still 0-0 coming up to the 20-minute mark. And we have to wait until just past the half-hour mark for the next highlight of this game, a free kick here to Melbourne City so far. I'd say based on stats, we've been the team with the slight ascendancy, but City here are on the attack yet again, some danger down this right-hand side. Alpha Luplecht does somehow keep that one, squares it nicely for Harrison. It comes off the post and Ford can help scramble that one away with some help from our defence. Will be interesting to see how much he gets tested in this game with quite a strong defensive line in front of him. But now we're on the counter-attack here. Ronaldo has the ball, unleashes a shot, but unfortunately that one gets blocked. Still 0-0, a couple of minutes shy of half-time. And about to make our way into added time here in the first half of this one. It does feel like we've been the team with the slight ascendancy based on stats, but a late highlight here, just as we're about to go over the 1 minute of added time. Thankfully, keep the ball there. Lovely ball for Ronaldo, who finds some space. He's onside. That's a lovely pass that from Fernandes, and the Brazilian will tuck that one past Vukovic at the near post to make it 1-0, right on the brink of halftime. Melbourne City probably feel a bit dirty about that one, because that would have been very close to being overtime, but Stefan Malka tackle on him, thankfully forced to Pascali, and lovely ball that from Fernandes to Ronaldo, just onside, and thankfully does beat Vukovic at the near post, and that probably last kick in anger of the first half does mean we go into halftime with a 1-0 lead, and based on stats, I'd say that now we definitely deserve that. Unfortunately, only 2 shots on target for both teams. We should have had a lot more with 9 shots overall compared to 3, but thankfully that last one we made count, and we have a 1-0 lead here in the Australian Cup final. Everyone out there doing decently, and with only 3 subs, I think we'll save those up for the second half, so we'll get things back underway and hopefully complete the double by holding on to this 1-0 lead. And just about to hit the hour mark in this game, a couple of players just struggling out there a little bit. On a 6.5, Debunga would have to replace with Negro, who's been very injury prone of late, so I think the only sub we'll make here, Jello up front for Gianni, with still a half hour left, and that 1-0 lead. And in fact, right off the back of that first sub, I think it's now time for us to make our last couple, because Lucas Nunez has picked up a yellow card, and also Ronaldo has gone down to a red heart. So a bit of an interesting sub here. Gavin Tormin to go on the right wing instead of left wing. That'll be the second sub we make, but also we'll make our last one while we're here. Play things safe at the back. Victor Ross to go alongside Adam Mitchell. That's all our subs used, and we still have that 1-0 lead. And just about into the last 10 minutes of this game, was just about to start time wasting here, but it's a free kick in our favour. They headed away there, do see, who to be fair have evened up all the stats quite a bit here in the second half, including shots overall. Thankfully, not too many on target. Hopefully, we can keep the ball here. That one nearly found its way there to a City player, but thankfully a Tamer did just find a way to keep that one. Now Callan Elliott plays that back to Adam Mitchell. A cushion goal here would be greatly appreciated. Would just make sure that we should pick up this Australian Cup to go alongside our A-League. Tolan Debunga squares that one nicely for Fernandes, and that should seal his 8th goal this season. Boy, he's had a good impact since he came in to replace Mohamed Ihataren. Has immediately become a key man for us on the left-hand side. Unfortunately, I'm going to have to cut up the replay off there, because we are going to start time wasting just to make sure we do hold on and pick up this win, to make sure we complete the double, just time waste, and just make sure that City, hopefully, don't get too many more chances in the later stages of this game. But thankfully, despite the fact both teams have had the same amount of shots on target, we've been just a bit more clinical with ours laid on in both halves. Only 5 minutes of added time, and thankfully doesn't look like much will happen, albeit late free kick here to City. Aslan tries to put that one top right corner, and Ford actually with a really good save from the rebound, albeit it did look like that the City player was offside, but Manny Ford will keep a decent clean sheet on debut in a cup final, and we complete the double with a win in the Australian Cup over Melbourne City. All our games against the A-League teams in this competition, which to be fair, there weren't too many, they were all quite tight, but we pick up a 2-0 win. Late goals in both halves through both Ronaldo and through Fernandes, our star wingers. They stepped up when it mattered, and thankfully didn't pay the price there too much for missing both Alex Paulson and Michael Vood on international duty, where hopefully they'll make sure that New Zealand gets a chance to go straight through to the group phases of the World Cup. But we complete a double in the second season of the save off the back of a 2-0 Australian Cup final win at Mount Smart over Melbourne City. And back in the inbox off back of that win, 2-0 over Melbourne City, thankfully getting some revenge for that surprise defeat that we suffered at Mount Smart back in March in the A-League, which almost brought the Central Coast Mariners back into the title race, but there's a confirmation. Pretty solid win for us there, albeit stats-wise. Quite an even game, but thankfully Kurnadze had a really good one, an assist and a goal for the Georgian, who, to be fair, might not be too far away now from an international call-up. That would make things interesting on whether we'd still keep him at the club if he can eventually play one day for the All Whites. But we do the double here in the second season of the save, thankfully, as well, seeing as that was a final at Mount Smart Stadium. Matty Ford, a clean sheet on debut. Good to see. So some decent goalkeeper depth here at AFC Auckland with the absence of Paulson and Vood on international duty. We win a massive £30,000 for winning the Australian Cup, which honestly, not sure if it was worth the hassle, but to be fair, the board wanted a deep run in that competition. Thankfully, we gave it to them and we pick up a double by winning the A-League and the Australian Cup. We'll just go forward, check out our transfer budgets, and also get stuck in to the end of season review. And we are back, just having got our transfer budget for this upcoming window here at AFC Auckland. Before then, as you can see, actually had the All-Star team named for the Australian Cup. We've got Adam Mitchell, Victor Ross, Sinclair, and Nick Sullivan in that team. It probably shows that we rotated our team quite a bit for those cup games that we did play in that competition. But the budget for next season, our wage budget, actually stays the same at £84,000 a week. That's a lot less, of course, than what we had this time last season. That got reduced during the course of this past season, so that's not too surprising. So unfortunately, our transfer budget of $1.15 million might not actually be that much. It's our lowest one so far, which is a bit surprising, having just picked up the A-League title as well as the Australian Cup. But if we're going to add some money to our wage budget, probably means our transfer budget is more closer to something like £500,000. So it does mean might not be signing too many new players here at AFC Auckland. Chris Wood of interest. His contract's expiring soon at Nottingham Forest. Unfortunately, he doesn't want to join the club because we're not quite big enough. We'll see if that changes once our reputation should get boosted off the back of that double win, because it'd be a great signing, because I think that's really the only area we need to look to strengthen quickly here at AFC Auckland. It does feel like both Gianni Bazoukas and Hassan Jallo might not quite be top tier striker level. Chris Wood would certainly be a good addition for the next couple of seasons of the save before he did retire. We'll see if we can get him, but that transfer budget and wage budget might mean that might not be too realistic given the current financial situation here at AFC Auckland. £1 million in debt, albeit we do get 1.3 million, I think it is, for winning the A-League once that money does eventually come through. And also, while we're here, the relegation playoff has been completed in the A-League, and as you can see there, the Newcastle Jets, they are going down. It was a 1-1 draw in the second league. Adelaide United, they do win that playoff 5-3. The Newcastle Jets, the first of the established A-League teams to drop down into the second division, and they'll be replaced once we find it and make our way to the promotion playoff section. Actually, you can see there the Darwin Cyclones going all the way down to the third tier. So they've had a bit of a shocker to start off the save. But the promotion playoff, the Redcliffe Waves comfortably won the second div. They'll come back up to the A-League alongside Brisbane City. So they'll be a new team in the A-League for next season. As you can see, already done some kits for them, which hopefully look kind of similar to what they've got in real life. And also Sydney United are coming up to the A-League as well, yet another team from New South Wales. So those are results in terms of promotion relegation to and from the A-League for next season, but we'll come back shortly off the back again that transfer budget and have a look at the end of season review. And not too long off the back again those transfer budgets, now it's time for our end of season review here for the second season of the save at AFC Auckland, only one day prior to our first of the last couple of World Cup qualifiers with the All Whites against Papua New Guinea and Tahiti. To be fair, that should be pretty comfortable. Should be making our way through to the final of that World Cup qualifying competition out of Oceania. But apparently the signing of the season, for some reason, can't get the board transfer reactions, which is a little bit weird, but it's the player that we signed on a free to replace Ahataran back in January, and that was Georgi Fernadze, the Georgian. 10 appearances starting, 2 off the bench, 8 goals and 3 assists. To be fair, that is a very good strike rate for his first half season here at the club. He certainly is a player on the verge of a Georgian call-up. Hopefully that won't happen, because I'd quite like him in a couple of years' time for the All Whites, but he certainly had a big impact in his first half season here at the club and does pick up the signing of the season. Also, Sebastian Pascali, actually the best of the players that we signed at the start of the season on a free from Western United. Also doing well, as you'd expect on a high wage, was Ronaldo, as well as Georgios Victoros, and of course Alex Paulson with that great first season in between the sticks. He did pick up the A-Legue goalkeeper of the season. Also doing decently, the Bungo, Michael Vood, and Lucas Nunez. Most of the signings that we did make had a good impact here. At AFC Auckland, we did sell a couple of players. Ironically, Stefan Kolakovsky, who I thought was the worst of the players that we sold, actually had the best rating, albeit in not too many games over there. At the Central Coast Mariners, also got rid of Michael Neal to Redcliffe. He'll be back in the top div next season. Scott Basilage went to the Melbourne Victory. Jamal Rainiers to Green Gully. Marinovich went over to that team who are over in Israel. And as well as that, we did get rid, once we go back to transfers out, of Mohamed Ihataran. That one probably the biggest sale that we made just because he was quite a good player for us, but unfortunately had me down as a rival despite the fact I was his manager, and to be fair, has been struggling so far. Over in Serie A, and unfortunately Mitch Oxborough over in China hasn't got any game time yet off the back of a pretty decent first season with us here last year. At AFC Auckland, so those were the transfers we did do in the second season of the save. The results were very good, obviously. Picked up the A-League title going one better than last season, and also probably the key factor in that, we only drew 2 games, so it did mean that we picked up maximum points from most of our games, 23 wins and 5 losses. Those came against Western Sydney Wanderers, the Central Coast Mariners, Melbourne Victory, Melbourne City, and that last game yet again against the Melbourne Victory, albeit that was one we didn't care too much about, with an eye on the cup final with suspensions in mind. But to be fair, most teams we lost to were up in the top half of the table, just that kind of random one there to Melbourne City once they got their act into gear late on in the season to make sure they didn't end down in the second division. But apart from that, most games that we did play this season, we picked up wins only held to draws by the Mariners and by Western United. The Australia Cup, the first season that we were in this, and we picked it up fairly comfortably. The only tight games did come on the 19th of Feb against the Western Sydney Wanderers, albeit I think that game they scored some late goals to make it a bit more closer than it felt. And also that game we showed you yesterday, the semi-final, that late win 3-2 over the Melbourne Victory to make sure it was not a Melbourne derby in the final. And thankfully, we picked up that 2-0 win over Melbourne City to lift the double. The only disappointment this season was the Australia League Cup, knocked out yet again in our first game in that competition by the Perth Glory. But thankfully, the board don't care about that one. That is now the only competition we need to win here at AFC Auckland. Going forward to moments to remember, biggest win was 6-0. I think that was in the quarterfinals of the Australia Cup over Gold Coast United. The match to remember, our first game of this A-League season, 6-1 at Mount Smart over Sydney Olympic, a newly promoted team, and the goal of the season did come in a 3-0 win away at South Melbourne back in August last year, and it was scored late on by our left back in Nathan Lobo. And here's the goal. It did come here from Jack Henry Sinclair being inside the box. We're just messing around here with the ball. It goes back to Lobo. Absolute rocket, that one into the bottom right corner. It's a decent goal. I would say I think we scored some better ones at times than that this season, but apparently that is the goal of the season, scored there over at the Lakeside Stadium. Unfortunately, didn't quite get a bus trip in for that one this season because South Melbourne weren't really good enough to show you guys because we bashed them both times. But that was the goal of the season, scored by our backup left back in Nathan Lobo. Going forward with the finances, these were all better than last season. I actually expect our reputation to go up off the back of that A-League title win, as well as the Australian Cup. Top shirt sellers, Ronaldo Fernandez, Pascali Malk, and Paulson. Just one player from last season staying up there in the top shirt sellers. How we lined up our best 11 for this past season, most of it makes sense. The only backup players in this 11 are Victoros over Nunez, so maybe he should get some game time as a first choice player next season, considering he is someone with a fair bit of potential. And also Tormeen out left is a little bit interesting considering just how good Fernandez was once he came to the club, but Tormeen did play a lot more football, so I suppose that makes sense. So really, that is pretty close to our first choice 11 from this past season, just Victoros in there over Nunez. Going forward to the accolades, our player of the season actually goes to Sebastian Pascali, probably because he was here for the whole season, unlike Georgie Fernandez. Young player of the season goes to Ronaldo with the exact same average rating. Interesting considering Ronaldo, I think, had a lot more goal contributions, but apparently Pascali did quite well in that deep-lying playmaker role. You saw signing of the season and goal of the season before. Top goal scorer went to Bazookas with 13. Taylor Tamer actually with the most assists from defensive midfield with 8. Most player of the matches did go to Gavin Tormin with 5. And going over to the right-hand side, we can see the record breakers. Taylor Tamer now is the most assists by a player in the season, and also Alex Paulson, the most clean sheets with 16. Worst discipline was Lucas Nunez with 8 yellow cards. Thankfully, no red cards. Cullen Elliott now is the most league appearances by a player at the club with 58. Gavin Tormin holds the goal scoring record with 33. The youngest player, this will take some beating, Paris Dudley, 16 years and 1 day. So just 1 day after he could play his first game, he made his debut here at AFC Auckland. The highest transfer fee paid was for Evander Bungo, £350,000. That was to replace Michael Neal, who we sold to Redcliffe for £140,000. Fastest goal to Mohamed Ahataran, no longer here, but was scored in 30 seconds. And the youngest goal scorer now is Matt Wilson, with a lovely chipped effort earlier this week or late last week. It's a bit of a blur at the moment, but Matt Wilson was the youngest goal scorer. And competition awards, Alex Paulson did pick up the A-Legue goalkeeper of the season, and also we picked up manager of the year, and Chiefy was second from the Wellington Phoenix. That was quite nice. We picked up our first manager of the season award here for our work at AFC Auckland, going forward to history in the making. Apparently it was our form in the late part of the season that did help us win the title, albeit we were up there for most of the season off the back of getting quite a kind start, taking on lots of the newly promoted teams. Now going forward to the manager time, we'll just go back to when this ticked over from last season. And I think it's around here where it is the case, because we signed, of course, the Bungo and Rowe now going into this season. Then a couple of youngsters made their debut over the past year. Also, we got New Zealand to the point where they won 14 games in a row around the AFC Nations Cup, and also quite a few friendlies that we did play to get our ranking up. And going forward a bit more, we did pick up some players on a free from our most recent youth intake. Also signed Fernandez to replace Ahataran. Yet again, Paris Dudley made his debut quite quickly after turning professional, as you saw before, with him now holding the record for the youngest player at the club. We of course scored that late goal yesterday to make our way through to the Australian Cup final over the Melbourne Victory, and picked up the A-League and the Australian Cup during today's episode. And as you saw before, Alex Paulson, the goalkeeper of the year, and we picked up the manager of the season. That will pretty much do it for the second season of life here at AFC Auckland of the save. Also, before we wrap that up, we do have the overall best 11 for the save so far. Alex Paulson walked straight into the goalkeeping spot, as does the Bungo at left back. The centre backs, Adam Mitchell and Victor Ross, surprisingly, also makes his way into the best 11 of his efforts from this season, despite the fact he was a backup. Cullen Elliott stays at right back, and Mitch Oxborough stays in the defensive midfield, these days joined by Sebastian Pascali. The attacking midfield does look very strong in this best 11 with Torming, Fernandez and Ronaldo. It does feel a little bit harsh on Stefan Malk that he's not there, being our captain and all, and up front Gianni Bazoukas over Hassan Jallo, and our bench is Basilage, Winston Reid, Michael Neal, Ahataran, Jack Henry Sinclair and Stefan Malk alongside Hassan Jallo. And just going up a little bit more, we'll see what else is here to end this season. That is why the supporter profile does look like interesting to see. They now have quite a high influence on the board, so maybe need to look to keep them quite happy. Otherwise, we could be in trouble here at AFC Auckland. Analyst report, squad dynamics look quite good. The new season team report, apparently we are the strongest in the A-League, so it doesn't look like need to actually strengthen too much in this upcoming window, which is nice, of course, seeing as we don't have too much of a transfer budget. As I said, I think the area I really want to strengthen is up front, but we'll see what does become available in the transfer window, apart from Chris Wood, who doesn't look like he wants to come here anyway and might be after too much of a wage. And there's the season stats for our first championship winning season here at AFC Auckland. But that will do it for the second season of this save in the A-League. If you enjoyed it, then do remember to go down below, leave a thumbs up on the video, and if you haven't done so already and are enjoying the series here on the channel, also consider hitting that subscribe button and turning that notification bell on as well. We'll come back tomorrow and recap the transfer window before playing, I think it will be our first game of the new season with AFC Auckland. Not too sure yet who that will be against, and also we'll do a recap of what happened in the World Cup qualifiers with New Zealand. Just make sure that we did top our pool, but to be fair, should be doing that considering the situation we find ourselves in with these two games coming up against Papua New Guinea and Tahiti. Would take an absolute disaster for us to not finish top of that pool. So as I said, I think we'll come back tomorrow, recap those games, just make sure that we do go through to that World Cup qualifying playoff out of Oceania, and also recap the transfers before we get stuck into our third season here at AFC Auckland. So until then, thank you very much for watching, keep on keeping on, and I'll see you then. Cheers.